Okay, so I've done a whole bunch of SvelteKit tutorial videos, and you're probably thinking, okay, how do I put all these together and actually build a project with them? Well, today we're gonna build a blog in SvelteKit. Hello YouTube. My name is Braden Gerard, and today we're gonna build a blog in SvelteKit. We're gonna use SvelteKit along with Ghost as a content management system to provide us a headless API to our blog posts and a very nice authoring experience, but that can then be statically generated inside of our SvelteKit project and hosted with a static host such as Netlify. So we're going to dive into SvelteKit today. I'm not going to be touching too much on how to get your Ghost content management system set up. I will have a future video on setting up a Ghost development environment. But today we're just going to look at SvelteKit and how we can put all the pieces that we've been learning over the last couple months in SvelteKit together to build an actual blog. We're going to look at stuff like fetching our blog posts. We're going to look at stuff like dynamic routing so that we can create our individual post pages. We're going to look at layouts and how we can use layouts in folders to change the layout, as well as, of course, building Svelte components in SvelteKit. So let's dive into the code and take a look at how we can build a blog in SvelteKit. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create a new SvelteKit project for our blog. So we'll make a directory called blog SvelteKit new. We'll go into that directory and we will do an npm init svelte at next. All right, do I want to use TypeScript? No, I'll use regular CSS. Perfect. Do an npm install. And now we have a brand new SvelteKit project. So let's open that up here. Blog SvelteKit new. Okay, let's add that to our workspace. And we will first create our index page for our blog. So we go into our routes index, and there's some stuff in here, some hello world stuff. Let's just run this. Dev dash open. And if we go over to our browser now, localhost 3000, we should have 3000. Brand new SvelteKit project. Okay, so this is going to be our Hello World blog. So let's leave the Hello World in there, and we will remove everything else. Since we've removed this counter component, we can get rid of it up here. We're going to make a very basic blog. This tutorial is not going to be on how to create nice CSS or extra functionality. We're just going to do a very bare bones blog, so excuse the styling. All right, so we'll actually completely remove all of this. We will keep the H1 styles, sure, but we can get rid of, we'll keep the fonts. And this is okay, the text align center, sure. So we'll keep that for now. Inside of here, so if we go back, what do we have now? We just have hello world, perfect. So now we also have a localhost Ghost installation running, okay? And this is just the default template for Ghost. We're not going to use the Ghost template at all. We're going to create our own SvelteKit template for Ghost, and we're going to pull from our Ghost CLI. So one thing that we do have to do is go to this local instance of Ghost that I have running and log in to the admin, and then we need to go over to our general and scroll down here, and we're going to say make this site private. That'll basically remove it from search engine optimization and put a password on the front end, so that if anybody ever got to our API or our headless content management system, they're not going to see anything. They'll just see it asking them for a password, and it also won't index this site, because we want our Ghost blog to be the one that's being indexed. So we turn that on, and then we go over to integrations. One second, gotta save the settings. We'll go over to integrations, and we're gonna say add a custom integration. This is where we're gonna get our API key for our blog post, or for our SvelteKit blog to pull from. So we're gonna give this integration a name, and we'll just call it SvelteKit blog, and we'll create it. And then there we now get our content API key and our API URL. So these are the two things that you're going to need to set up your Ghost JavaScript client, okay? So if we go back to our SvelteKit blog here, open up the code, we will want to pull in all of the posts into this homepage so that we can list them out, okay? So we'll do that inside of our script tag here using the Ghost JavaScript module. So first we need to install that module. So let's install that by doing an npm install, and we're going to save it. So --save, and it's going to be at try ghost /content-API. Perfect, so we've installed that, and now we can import that inside of our homepage here. We can say import ghost content API from, and then at try ghost /content-API. And now we have the JavaScript module for interacting with our ghost content API. And we can do some very easy API manipulation with that. Okay, so let's pause there. Let's go and start setting up sort of the structure of our blog. So let's create a layout inside of our routes folder. So we'll make a new layout starting with the $ layout.svelte. And we will, inside of there, we'll put our main block here. Okay, and we will also put our CSS for main in there, as well as our root CSS. There we go. So that's good. And now we have our layout that everything should get wrapped inside of here and go inside where this slot is. Now, we want to have a nav and a footer on each of our pages, just so we can get back to our home page, and we'll just add a footer to put, say, a copyright in for now. I mean, you can also add lots of other stuff there, but that's not the point of this tutorial. So we're going to have a nav component here. Sorry, autocomplete, so everything nav. And then we're going to also have a footer right here. Okay, and then our content will go between the nav and the footer. So if we go over to our components folder, we'll make a new component, one called nav.svelte and one called footer.svelte. And we will, in our nav, we'll just say nav, and then we'll do an href equals, and we'll just say home. And we'll call that home. So that's all our nav's going to have in it. And then we'll create in our footer just some text that is going to say copyright 2021 Braden Gerard. Good enough. And we go back to our layout. We've imported both of those, so we need to, or we put both of those in our markup, so we need to import them. So let's do the import nav from $components / nav.svelte, and we also want to import footer from components / footer.svelte. All right, let's see how our site is looking now. So let's run this again and go back to our browser. And we've got our nav and we've got our footer, okay? And then our hello world and our blog posts we are going to put here. Perfect. So let's go back to our code and let's create a new route. So we'll make a new folder here called posts. And inside of there, we'll make a new file, and it's going to have the slug. So slug.svelte. Okay, so that'll allow us to have our blog post at /post and then whatever the slug is. Okay, and inside of this slug.svelte is where we are going to show the content of our actual post. So let's go back to our index.svelte, and we will actually start pulling in our posts here. So we're going to use that Ghost JavaScript API client, and we're going to say const API equals new Ghost content API, and then we're going to give it the URL, which which is the URL that we got from our integration here. So our localhost URL. And then we're going to give it the key, which again is over here in our integration. And then we're going to give it a version. So v3 is the current version, so we'll stick with v3. And now we can use this API to fetch content. Now, we're not going to want to do these imports inside of a regular script here. We're going to actually want to change this to be a script that runs when the page is loaded so that we can load in those blog posts ahead of time. So we're going to actually change this to say script context equals module so that everything that we export here will be available as a props. And then we will say export async function load, and then in there we will initialize our API, and we will say try, because we want to make sure that this will succeed if for some reason our API is down. Const result is equal to await, and then we want to grab our actual blog post, so API dot posts dot browse, and then we pass it an object with how many we want. So we'll just say we'll get 5 posts for now. And then let's include, what do we want to include? Let's include the tags on the posts as well as the authors. So this is coming from the Ghost documentation for their content API. So if you want to know what else you can do here, you can always look there. Okay, and then we will take our result and we will get the JSON out of it. So we'll say const JSON posts is equal to await result.json. And then down here, we are going to catch, in case there's an error on either one of those. And we'll just log out the error for now. Now, if we get the posts, we want to actually return those posts from this function so that we can import them as props. So we're going to say return, and then the props object with our posts inside of it. So let me say posts and the JSON posts. Sorry, that should be a colon. And our JSON posts. So now inside of our script for our homepage, we can say export let posts, and that will be populated when our page loads with this data. And then we can go over here to the page and we do a svelte for loop. So we say for each post, posts as post, and then we will do a list here. So let's start the list here. Close the list after our each, and we close our each, and then inside of our loop we say list item, and we'll just do an a href equals, we want to get the post.slug, and then we want to get the post.title here as the actual content. I'll make this /posts, sorry. /posts/post.slug. Okay, so that should create a list for each of our posts with a link to each post on our homepage. So if we save this and we go back and we reload our homepage. Okay, so we have an error here. Let me just go back and see where we made a mistake. It can't see this as an array. So, oh, this is probably already returning as JSON, so we don't need this res.json here. So we'll just say, we'll just call this JSON posts and save that. And if we go back, there we go. We have all of our posts printing out in a list. Okay, so we have the post title with the slug. If we click on it, it goes to the /post/welcome. And now we have to put our actual post content into these pages. So let's go back to our code and we'll go to the slug.svelte here. And just for saving some time here, we will copy this so that we can pull the post in on that page as well. And here we will actually pull in one specific post, not all the posts. So instead of calling an api.post.browse, we're going to call an api.post.read. And then we are going to say that we want to get it by the slug. And then the slug is going to be the slug that we pass in from the URL that we've provided, because we're using the slug in that URL. So if we want to get the slug from the URL, then we just have to pass that context object into our load function, and then we can get the slug out of that context object. So we can just say let slug equal context dot page dot params dot slug. And now that we have that slug, we can use that slug in our API request here. So we can say slug, we can just do that, say what types of content we want back in our individual post. So we could say formats as a second object here, formats, and then an array of formats that we want our content back in. I'm just going to say HTML so that we can get the HTML format. So this should be here. So we pass in first what we're querying by. So we're querying by the slug, and then we pass in the options that we want here. So I want the formats of HTML. That should get us back our individual post. So then we can return the props of post, and here we put post. Now, in the script for our blog post page, we would simply say script export const post, and then we would go down into our page and we do a printout of our post. So first we'll do the title. We'll say post.title, and then below that we would do the content. So I'm just going to say at HTML so that it keeps my HTML content, and then post.html. And that should create the rest of our post page, not const export let. And if I go back over now, we see our first blog post. It's ugly, there's no styling, but it's there. And if we go back to home, /home is not a route, so we should not have made that in our nav. It should just be / to go to our route. If I go back to home, we're on a broken page now, so let's reload this. Did I break my whole site? There we go. If I go to an individual post, we have the post. If I go back home, there we go. I go to my next post, we can see writing with posts. And we can go to each one of our posts in our blog. Okay, so that is a very basic blog setup with SvelteKit, but it gives you a good idea of how to create layouts and how to actually use them. It allows you to see how to do dynamic routing. It also shows you how we can do AJAX requests using in this case we're using the Ghost JavaScript API, but you could also do this with the Fetch API. If you need to use fetch, you need to get fetch out of the context object on your dynamic routes. So if you're going to do a fetch here, you would instead say context.fetch. And then you could do just a regular fetch request if you wanted. Okay, so that's one thing that's a little different from Sapper. So some people were confused with that. Just to pay attention to that if you were doing regular fetches and not using a JavaScript client-side API like this Ghost API that we're using. But that's how you'd create a blog using Ghost and SvelteKit. So I hope that helped, and yeah, that's all I have for today.
Thanks for sticking around for another one of my SvelteKit tutorial videos. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube knows that you really like what you're seeing here, and it's going to show it to more people like yourself. If you want to catch more of my SvelteKit tutorial videos or development videos in general, I'm going to be releasing tons of content in the upcoming months, so make sure to drop a subscribe on my channel so that you don't miss out. Thanks for hanging out and have a great day.